everyone, this is Marika and welcome back to another session of Communication and Education Technology. We have started with the 7th unit, which is Educational Media, and in the last two sessions we have discussed about what is educational media, what are the different purposes, what are the importance, what are the characteristics, and various types of educational media. In this session today, we are going to discuss about the sources of audiovisual aids or the sources of educational media. Now that we know that educational medias are any kind of teaching devices or any kind of objects that helps the teacher to make the concept or a particular class more clear by using those devices. It can be auditory, it can be non-projected visual aids, it can be projected visual aids, it can be audio visual aids, or it can be activity aids and traditional media. There are different forms of educational media. But what are the sources of educational media? That we are going to discuss in this session today. So there are various sources of audiovisual aids or educational media. The first one is government. The second one is various educational institution or organization. The third one is professional organizations. The fourth one is NGOs, and the last one is various national and international voluntary organizations. Now the government, various professional organizations, the educational institutions or organization, the NGOs and voluntary organizations all are involved in development and distribution of various types of AV aids. Now, as I said, the government, the NGOs, various voluntary national and international voluntary organizations, they are involved in not just distributing the AV aids, but also developing the AV aids. And they mainly develop and distribute the AV aids for mass communication as well as for education. If we have to talk about specifically about the educational institutions, then audiovisual aids that are required and used in educational institutions are usually prepared either by government or premier educational organization, commercial companies who produce the audiovisual aids. So as I said, all this organization, the government is involved in developing as well as distribution of AV aids. So they distribute AV aids for mass communication as well as education. When we talk about education specifically, government, various premier educational organization and commercial companies who produce the AV aids are usually responsible for developing as well as distributing the AV aids. Now let us see how this organization, how government is involved in developing and distributing AV aids one by one. So as I said, the first one is government. Government is the first source of providing audiovisual aids for mass communication as well as for education. So the government, either the central government or the state government, has two departments. The first one is Department of Communication, Broadcasting and Mass Media, and the second department is Department of Education. So these two different departments from a central government or a state government are usually involved in developing as well as distribution of the AV aids. Now again, from the term itself, as I said, there are two departments. The one department is Educational Department and the other one Department of Communication, Broadcasting and Mass Media. So from this term only we can understand that the Department of Communication, Broadcasting and Mass Media usually prepares and distributes the AV aid that is required for mass media, whereas the Department of Education is purely involved in producing and distributing the AV aids for educational purposes. So the Department of Education under the central or state government is involved in planning what kinds of AV aids are required in different educational institutions according to the level of the student, what will be the best AV aid for the students. So they plan, they develop and they also distribute the AV aids in various educational institutions under the central government or the state government. So of course, when government is involved, either it is the state government or the central government, there are experts who are in each of the departments. So those experts, they get involved in various researches, they perform various researches according to the advancements of science and technology. They find out about the particular AV aid, what can be used for what kind of educational institution, what is the level of students, what kind of AVAs will be best for attaining the educational objectives. So once all this research is done by the experts of each of the department, they start to produce as well as distribute the AVAs for different departments. I hope you've understood the first source of educational media, that is government. So under government, there are two major departments. One is the Department of Communication, Broadcasting and Mass Media, whereas the other one is the Department of Education. From the term itself, we can understand government usually produces AVAs that is either required for mass communication or for educational purposes. So as there are two departments, the Department of Communication and Broadcasting plans, develops and distributes the AV required for mass communication, whereas the Department of Education plans and prepares the AV and also distribute it to the various educational institutions. So these departments will have various experts in each of their department. The expert actually do research and find out about the advancement in science and technology, finds out about what is the best AVA that can be used for every different kind of educational courses, and finally develops educational media according to the level of students as well as what can be used to achieve the maximum educational objectives from the students. The second one, as we said, is educational organization. So educational organization are also one of the source of audiovisual aids. Now, when I say educational institution, it does not mean every educational institution or organization is involved in developing AV aids. There are very few premier educational institutions. There are experts who are involved in regular research. Those kind of educational institution where there are experts who are involved in research, those kind of educational institutions are given a responsibility of developing educational AV aids. So those experts in premier educational institution who are involved in research will find out about various innovative ideas as well as new advancements in the technology which can help the teacher make the class and the concept much easier. So according to the technology advancement, these experts who are in premier educational institutions are responsible for producing educational AV aids. The third source of educational media is professional organization. So various professional organizations are also given responsibilities of planning and developing audiovisual medias that are required for different purposes by the government. Here also the professional organization, based on the latest technology and advancement in the science and technology, find out about what is the best teaching tool for the students and develop those teaching tools or educational media for the educational institutions and distribute it to the educational institutions. Next one, we have NGOs. NGOs are also one of the good source of providing AV aids. However, most of the NGOs are mostly involved in preparing and distribution of AV aids that is required for mass communication and not for educational purposes. The fourth one is NGOs. So NGOs are mostly involved in developing and distribution of educational media for mass communication, but they can also be source of providing educational media for the educational institutions as well. And the last one that we have is national and international voluntary organizations. Some of the national and international voluntary organizations may provide funds for the educational institutions so that they can directly purchase the audiovisual aids that is required according to the requirement or the educational needs of the students. Or sometimes these national and international voluntary organizations may also be the source who produce the audiovisual aids that are required for the educational institutions. If educational institution require any kind of AV aids, they can directly contact various different national and international voluntary organizations such as World Health Organization and World Bank. And finally, we have the last source of educational media, that is commercial companies, or we can also call them commercial producers of educational media. Now, commercial producers of audiovisual media are the most largely accessed source of audiovisual aid. Of course, they are the commercial producers, right? So, commercial producers are the ones from which people purchase most of the audiovisual media. They are the most largely accessed source of audiovisual media. There are various national and international commercial producers of audiovisual aid who not just produce but also supply the educational aids to the various educational institutions. Now, as I said in the previous one, the educational institution, if they require any kind of audiovisual aids or educational media, they can contact the various national and international voluntary organization, right? But here, the commercial producers of audiovisual aids, they themselves will reach out to the educational institutions asking if they need any kind of audiovisual aids. Or they may also advertise the product that they have. So as it is a commercial producer, it actually reaches out to the various educational institution, or they may also advertise about the products that they have. So these commercial producers may be contacted to show or to demonstrate the product that they have, and later they may be the source of educational media for the particular educational institution. Now, government educational media may receive audiovisual aids or educational media from different sources, but the private institutions will usually have to approach to the commercial producers of the audiovisual aids. So that is it for the sources of AV aids. To summarize, we have discussed about the different sources of AV aids, which can be government, which can be various national and international voluntary organizations, which it also can be NGOs, educational organization, or professional organization. And we have seen what these different kind of organizations are involved, whether they provide the AV aids that is required for mass communication or for educational purposes. I hope the class was helpful, and I'll see you all in the next session where we will be discussing about the graphic aids that are used in teaching learning process. Thank you and have a great day ahead.